Okay, this is so interesting. This story, Myth's Bad Ending, is a standalone short, but it's written like a final battle scene of a greater narrative that doesn't exist. It's like if we had the last battle in Avengers Endgame, but without phases 1, 2, and 3 setting it up, but it still works somehow, and this story doesn't just still work, it thrives, it's incredible. Some background if you don't know what this is, if you're watching this and wondering, the visuals are fantastic, but where are the voices? Why is it in grayscale? It's because this whole thing, all of it, was made by one guy. This is not an anime made by a big studio. It's not some cinematic short funded by a big company with a whole team of animators behind it. No, this is a fan project made by a single fan. Myth's Bad Ending, or Myth vs. Ina, is a fan animation based on the lore of Holomyth, a super popular VTuber group under Hololive, and the whole thing was conceived, written, and animated by an artist named Mazumaro. And despite being a fan project, despite being made by one person, it's honestly better than a lot of animation you see from like actual studios with like actual industry money behind it. That's crazy. But what's even crazier to me is despite the fact that Mazumaro, I assume, is an animator by trade, that's what he's dedicated the most time to, that's a specialty here. There's so many great writing things about this narrative. Micro stuff, macro stuff, and even some seriously ingenious meta stuff. And I don't know what was consciously implemented or just insane storytelling instinct, but there is so much that just works here. There's so much to learn from here. And by the way, when I say there's no setup for this, I know there's lore here, but I don't know any of the lore, and I'm sure a lot of casual fans don't know any of the lore. And this is totally watchable with no prior knowledge of what's going on or who these characters are. And that is how I'm going to be proceeding here, from the POV of someone who knows nothing about what any of this is. So let's talk about this first shot. And I know it's not the actual first shot, we'll talk about that too. We see 4 characters here, 1 character here. Already I know exactly who the villain is, and then by implication, I know who the heroes are. It's pretty clear just from the look of these characters, dark shadowy monster versus normal looking humans. And even if I didn't get it from that, there's this gigantic shadow literally reaching out at us, which is more darkness on the screen, but also it feels like a threat. It's like darkness clawing at us. We feel that sense of threat subconsciously. Then we get our up-close shot of our villain. Again, we gather so much from this just visually here. Ina's design has always been immediately and purposely incongruous. It looks unnatural. We have a tiny little girl with this massive Lovecraftian tentacles, but Mazumaro in this iteration of the character cranks that up a lot and really efficiently. Blackness is covering a little girl. This isn't just a monster, this is a girl who became a monster. We get that just from this image. The blackness here is just screaming possessed, taken over, corrupted, and in our minds we can separate the girl from this blackness, from the monster. And if we do that, well, this girl would fit in perfectly with this group of heroes, this group of other girls. So basically 2 images, and we're already inferring the larger story behind it. All these girls used to be part of one group, monster included. They all used to be friends, and then something dark and unnatural took this girl over, and now the friends had to fight against their former, now corrupted friend. There's the setup, the full thing. Don't need a 2-hour movie, don't need a full season, don't need 3 phases of a cinematic universe leading up to this. No, 2 images and we're good. That is impressive. Let's also talk about structure while we're here, because that's something else which is already implicit from this first image, but then Calli stepping up first confirms it. 4 characters versus 1 character. As soon as we see that, we can be pretty sure each girl is going to have her turn fighting Ina, and implying a very clear set structure to a fight scene like this creates anticipation. We will be watching Calli go at this and be anxious to see what is Kiara going to do, what is Gura going to do, what is Ame up to, and why are they protecting her. And the particular order, skipping ahead a bit, is actually really clever too. The order is Calli first, then Calli and Kiara, then Gura, and finally Ame. With any progression, with any build up, we are trying to, well, build up. We want things to get more and more exciting, more and more epic, bigger, stronger, closer and closer to victory, but Mazumaro reverses what I would have thought to be the logical order of build up. Just going on superficial impressions, Calli looks the strongest. She's taller, she has a big weapon, we have this whole death theme to her character, makes her feel dangerous. Then Kiara, who's also taller than the others, has an athletic build. We see she has a weapon here too, and her theming isn't exactly death personified like Calli's, so I would think she's the next strongest. Gura is the smallest, but we see the shark theming, the shark teeth, she would be next. And then least apparently strong is Ame, who looks just like a normal detective girl. We are not going from normal girl to strong to stronger to strongest. We start with the apparent strongest, we start with death itself, which narratively seems like something we would be building up to, but the way this starts, it's clear that the least dangerous looking member of the team is our last resort. She is what we're building up to. So that's interesting. It's another layer of promises with a twist, because we know it's still going to build up, but now we don't know how it's going to build up. There's an aspect of each of these characters that is being hidden from us. If Calli and Kiara fail, how can Gura possibly have a chance? And whatever makes Ame the most dangerous is a total mystery at this point. So that's more anticipation, more specific scenes we're looking forward to, specific aspects of those scenes, more little hooks within hooks within hooks here. Very similar to how in Dragon Ball Z, you'll often see the final form be the smallest one. It's an implicit promise that there's stuff that's being hidden from us, that we're going to see something that totally shocks us. So Calli goes in, it's a quick battle, but this accomplishes a lot too. Calli does well, but Ina demonstrates that this battle will be a level above what quick scythe work can take care of. The point of this first little fight segment is ramping up the power level fast. And next we ramp it up even faster because we already changed up the implied structure. We are done with 1v1, it's time for 2v1. And that's also augmented by both Calli and Kiara transforming into their final forms, which cranks things up even more. And let me just add here, underrated use of the setting, the cityscape here, not only so that we have a lot of stuff to crash into, but it really emphasizes the scale. Giant Giant Reaper Calli looks super badass fighting among the buildings. We got Kiara shooting fire everywhere. But what I love most is Ina's fists. So unnatural, so eerie, very in keeping with a corrupted monstrosity theme, and also just hard to imagine how one would fight against that. How do you win against gigantic fists that come out of nowhere? And the way this sequence ends, just as unnatural, just as wrong, just as impossible to fight. Okay, Gura's turn. Let's talk fighting style. Gura changes up the paradigm by fighting with her Shork Phantom thing, and then skipping ahead, she changes up the paradigm again with, I assume this is supposed to be Red Gura, and we see this whole hand-to-hand combat scene, and then she changes it again with the chase scene afterwards. So this is a continuation of what we saw with Calli. With both these characters, we get fight scenes with multiple different phases of combat and multiple different styles of combat, and with Ina reciprocating with her own various different styles. So between all of them so far, we've gotten Calli's Scythe Work, Ina's Magic Beams, Kiara's Chicken Fire, Giant Reaper Calli, Ina's Fist from Nowhere, her Natural Explosion, Gura's Phantom Shark Attack, her one-off Trident Throw, Red Gura's Hand-to-Hand, or Teeth to Tentacle, and then from here, the hand-to-hand becomes the whole parkour rushdown sequence. We've gotten like 10 different types of fighting here. That is so much diversity in action, and it's only been 5 minutes. That's crazy. Okay, I bypassed a lot here. The emotions, oh my god. Mazumaro very subtly set up that we were going in this more emotional direction here. For Calli and Kiara, they were in logistics mode going in. We gotta contain this, we gotta buy time. For Gura, it already starts on a more personal note. She's talking to this monster as if it's still her friend. She's saying, please stop, that's not what you say to a monster. And we get this dark god being thing responding directly to that, shutting it down. Gura then does go into fight mode, but from within that mental state, she is yanked back into personal mode. Feeling so discouraged, she can't help but think about Ina's cheerful encouragement. As hard as she tried, she just forced back into that mental state. Way back when, in another life full of play and laughter and kind words. And those feelings, I think this is so important in fight scenes. We need the action and excitement and chaos, but what bumps these scenes up to the next level is the sudden intrusion of unexpected emotions. Whether that's sadness or humor or sentimentality or shock or beauty, it just imbues these fight scenes with a different level of meaning and a different type of intensity. We don't know where this is going to take us emotionally. And I love that we get this moment now. We go from bloody fighting to playing video games. It totally shatters the mood, it destabilizes us, and it thrusts us into all the sadness below the surface for this character. We're seeing a lot of depth explored very quickly here, especially since immediately leading into this memory was an image of just how far gone Ina is. We get the full view of this cosmic horror she's become, confirming exactly what this being itself told Gura, that her friend is gone, and then right from that into this happy memory of this friend who has lost to us because of this. That sadness becomes painful resolution. We get this clear emotional transition there, and that pain is concretized, it's symbolized by what it takes to bring Gura to her final form. Losing a friend feels so much like getting stabbed in the gut. And with this particular transformation, this small aesthetic change is not the one I find interesting here. It's this animation. A creative way of overcoming the limits of size when it comes to implying character strength is making it look like something else is animating this person. Gura is propelled forward. It's almost like she's not in control. Something much stronger, much more wild is. So we see Gura's pain channeled into this wildness so raw that it tears right through Ina's magic that's been stopping everyone else. And Ina is struggling physically to keep up. She has to call in the giant fist again, and we are thrown into this heart-pounding chase scene, dodging giant black hands from the sky, flipping around them, climbing on them. I love the disorientation here in this shot. It's like we think there's something wrong with the video, and then suddenly we're rising into the air, and then we're falling, and this really intense sequence of the hands clawing at us, and then boom. I mentioned this in my Lord of the Rings video too. Breaks. In these big scenes, we need breaks, and that was by far the most exciting part of this fight. Now we get some time to breathe. It would have exhausted us if it went on too long, but this chase scene was exactly as long as it needed to be. And then we get a quick break before this scene. Oh boy. We are thrust right back into the emotions, and this is the resolution to what was essentially Gura's own little arc within this short. Calli and Kiara come here to fight. Ame comes to save us. Gura is here because she wants Ina back as her friend. Mentally, that is the space she's in. That is how this starts. That sentiment is shot down, and Gura does force herself to fight, but then from within that, the longing and sadness creeps its way back in again. But Gura is resolute. She channels her pain into this final assault, and it doesn't work, and it's hopeless. And then there, in that moment of absolute hopelessness, that is when we see Ina finally emerge, finally resurface so briefly, just for half a moment. This emotion we see in her. Mazumaro could easily have just had Ina be frantic and desperate in defending her friend, but no, he shows a much more nuanced emotion. There's disgust in this look, contempt, and a complete lack of respect. It's like she's swatting away a pest, and there's pain too. And strength also. Ina is fighting from the inside. Calli couldn't do it, Kiara couldn't do it, Gura couldn't do it, Ame isn't ready, but there is one more member of Myth. Ina herself can fight. Maybe she can do it. And she does, just like with Gura. It's the pain of seeing her friend in danger. Channeling that pain, she finally does break through. She is released, but too late. And we're not only robbed of this reunion we and Gura have been yearning for. No, the one emotion we get to see from Ina once she finally escapes us and once she recovers from her shock, we get time to see one feeling, this one complex, tragic feeling, this lost, regretful hopelessness. And we hear from her the one thing she's been aching to say this whole time. Not I miss you, not I love you, it's I'm sorry. And she doesn't even get to finish saying it. It's over. It's done. Pause. So we haven't talked much about Ame yet. As varied as all the action has been, like we pointed pointed out, the biggest variation of them all has been Ame, who's been kneeling in the same spot, absolutely still this entire time. The contrast between all of the action and then the stillness makes us feel how out of place this is. And Ame has already been set up as the most important person to protect throughout all of this. So we are pretty curious at this point. Okay, but now there is this whole meta dimension to this as well that we have to talk about. And this is absolutely fascinating. So with any mystery arc within a story, there needs to be a ramp of curiosity. And the structure of that ramp, where it starts, how high we can build it, depends on the size of the medium we're working with. With longer form media, we had the luxury to start small. The first few clues are tiny, we may not even notice anything is out of the ordinary, or we may be curious but we forget about it because there's more important things going on. Eventually, the clues get less subtle and we cannot ignore them. And then the biggest clues, what really pushes us to the peak of this curiosity mountain, those come at the very end just before the climax. These are the moments where like, wait a second, what is going on here? All that stuff before isn't just important, this is everything. This is what the whole story hinges on. And then in contrast with the short form media, we don't have that time. We need to get the audience close to those same heights of curiosity much quicker. So we drop bigger hints. We drop them earlier and we make sure that you know that they are big hints. This standalone short of Mazumaro's, as you're seeing it now, is a standalone short. But if you were following the story as it was being produced, you would have experienced it more like a series of shorts. Mazumaro produced this over the course of about a year and a half, posting updated versions every few months, and we'd usually get the next scene or the next few scenes. So this release format, Mazumaro saw opportunity here and he took full advantage. What's essentially going on here is that for half the potential audience, this is short form fiction. It is a standalone short. And to the other half, it's long form fiction. It's an 18-month long series of shorts. For us, 18 months ago, we saw Ame kneeling and doing something and we wondered, she just got to charge her clock attack or whatever it is. But then we kept seeing it, and each time we saw her kneeling, each time we saw everyone else failing, everyone else stepping in front of her, we started realizing, hold on, something different is going on here. It's not that unusual for a character to prepare their attack for like 5 minutes while everyone else is fighting, but for long haul viewers, she wasn't kneeling for 5 minutes, she was kneeling for 18 months. Something's going on. What in the world is she up to? That is a very, very gradual curiosity ramp that builds up to significant heights. Compare that to the short-term audience experience. She's been kneeling for only a few minutes, not that weird, so we have to change things up. And this is where we get to the next element of all this. Most of Mazumaro's updates were sequential, but not all of them. On the final update, Mazumaro changed a few things radically. First of all, I mentioned this earlier, the version you're seeing now starts with Ame in this mysterious room. Not so in previous versions. Past versions all started with that first shot we talked about with the characters. In this final version, we got all these signs of what Ame was up to, the connecting lines. In older versions, we see almost nothing. She was just kneeling down on a clock imprint, no lines, no interface. And finally, most importantly, the title. The version of the short you are seeing now is called Myth's Bad Ending. Not so in previous updates. It was Holomyth versus Ina in every version before this one. And these changes, these are all much bigger clues that start the curiosity ramp at a much higher elevation compared to the previous versions. Right off the bat, we know Ame is not preparing some detective pocket watch themed attack or something. No, she's planning something totally different. We know that because she ends up in a weird room, no Ina in sight. This clue is expressing clearly that Ame is playing a totally different role in this than the other characters, and something bad is going to happen. It is a bad ending. What is up with that? I want to know. Wait, but doesn't that mess things up for long haul viewers? We just talked about this beautifully gradual progression of clues they get, and now all of a sudden we have the super loud, gigantic first clue in the opening scene. That doesn't mess things up? But no, for the old viewers, remember this isn't the first scene at all. For us, this first scene of the final version is coming at the end of its own 18-month narrative. For us, we are long past small clues. That was over a year ago. Right now is when we need the big clues, and that's exactly what this is. 18 months in, right before the big climax for us, we get this radical title change, we get the modified scenes, and we are ramping up like crazy, just like the new viewers. We are exactly parallel to their ramp. It matches perfectly. Two completely different viewing experiences, two completely different mystery structures, but Mazumaro finds a way to bend the narrative to serve both perfectly. And he does it by using the release format. This isn't even a tool within the narrative itself, but he realizes there's a sick opportunity here and he executes so efficiently. Incredible meta storytelling technique. I'm totally blown away by it. I don't know if it was intentional from the start, or what I guess is that it came together that this is the best plan, maybe about 2/3 of the way in. Either way, it worked beautifully. So much curiosity has been built up for all viewers. And getting back to the time freeze scene, building up curiosity is essential for dropping a big complicated piece of info on the audience, which is exactly what we're about to do. If they aren't anticipating it, if they aren't desiring it, they won't be willing to put in the energy necessary to understand this complex thing you're about to show them. So we've done that. Oodles and oodles of curiosity here. But still, can we appreciate just how efficiently Mazumaro drops this info bomb on us? Time travel and parallel universes and resetting timelines is horrifically complicated, and he does it all in seconds with no dialogue whatsoever. Forget even that added opening scene, the added thing with the lines. Even without that, we know know this has to do with time from the clock. We know this has to do with manipulating time because we experience the time freeze, which is long enough. We linger for enough time on this freeze that it sinks in that the whole narrative is about to plunge into time travel mode. But then comes the most difficult part, because we're not just hopping dimensions, we're hopping to like an end of time-esque meta dimension, overlooking all dimensions, overlooking all the time in all the universe. How do we convey that? So this dimension hopping scene may look like a random montage, but there's a progression here too. First of all, we get a dinosaur and big small Ame. Next we get skeleton Ame. Then Ame with a mustache. Then we see all the bee Ames. Then this roughly manga style universe. And finally this beautiful color shot. So you go from bizarre versions of our reality with bizarre things and bizarre versions of us. There's a fun and silly and cute mood to this first half. Then our last two changes, it's the fabric of reality itself that changes. The textures of the physical world are different, the way the world exists is different, and finally the loudest of these changes, the color. And here in these last two changes, no jokes at all, we're past the fun, these changes are getting kind of serious. There's like this nervousness, where are we going next? What is this building up to? It's very subtle, we're not noticing it, but we're feeling it subconsciously. It's preparing us to land here, in this place that we know will be the most different from any of these other universes, and the most serious of any of these other universes. And as far as that difference, the function of this place, to convey this incredibly complex purpose we have here, the function of this meta overarching dimension, we get this. This is making use of a principle I heard from Mark Rosewater, head designer Magic the Gathering. He talks about this from his early days as a sitcom writer. The idea is having a balance between comfort and surprise. You have these core elements of the sitcom, the character group, the setting, the type of plot. If you want to change one of these up, you have to keep another one the same. We'll have episodes that take place in Florida with all the Del Boca Vista characters, but it will be the same plot type. But if we change the plot type, the episode that's told backwards, for example, then we need to focus on our familiar, comfortable core character group. We need that intact. You cannot do big different casts of characters and different setting and backwards plot. That would be too different. You need to anchor the complex, interesting, surprising thing in a comfortable element that's kept simple, familiar, easily digestible. Here we have a very complex grand meta dimension thing. There is an impulse to construct an equally complex grand way to manifest this complex grand thing. Mazumaro realizes, no, you anchor the complexity in an uncomplicated and familiar package. A YouTube video. Possibly the most familiar package for people currently watching a YouTube video. Very straightforward. We see the scene we just left on screen, paused. Very easy metaphor, that's how we were already thinking about it. And that, again, very subtly sets up exactly the decision we're about to face. If we can pause the runtime like a YouTube video, can we rewind the runtime like a YouTube video? We begin to understand here, we begin to suspect what's going on in the lead up to this decision. And this decision of hers is essentially about hope. And this is another thing that Mazumaro just gets perfectly and expresses perfectly. The way to feel hope is through hopelessness. Hope needs hopeless circumstances to actually be hope. Otherwise, it's just logical, it's practical. Maybe it's optimism, but no. Hope is specifically acting when there's little or no chance of success. Mazumaro conveys that immediately and powerfully right here. This has not worked before. This has not worked multiple times. And not working means death. It means your own corpse. We have stakes and odds and a very vivid and emotionally charged package in just a couple images. And it's elaborated on here with the phone message, confirmation of the utter hopelessness could not be clearer. And Ame understands that completely, and Ame decides to save her friends. She destroys the film, she rewinds time to the beginning, resulting in her own death, all for this tiny, infinitesimal hope that she might be able to save her friends. And it's also an effective choice to wait until now to confirm our understanding of how this whole meta dimension works. Instead of introducing it earlier and then confirming it earlier, Mazumaro introduces it, he hints at its purpose. We may have formed a rough idea and suspected what was going on, but then now we deliver the sudden rush of understanding along with the sudden rising action of Ame's decision. And all the emotions of understanding and all the emotions of Ame's decision are concentrated into a single moment. The big picture snaps into focus, Ame's sacrifice snaps into focus. Everything up until now we suddenly get. We get that the other Hololive members could fight Ina, but it was always to buy time. It was always to give Ame the opportunity for the ultimate solution, Ina's own solution, as we foreshadowed. Try again, try a little harder, and you might win. And we end, ironically, with a big bang with a beginning. Okay, let me go over some things I breezed past. I compared this to the MCU before Avengers Endgame. Look for a moment at the setup to that. We see localized threats in Phase 1, fighting arms dealers, fighting Nazis, the Battle of New York, one city to save Earth, one planet. Eventually we work our way up over the course of 3 phases to conflicts on the scale of the entire universe, conflicts dealing with multiple universes. This short started with a battle to save a friend on a battlefield in a city. And in 11 minutes, not 11 years, 11 minutes, we get to multiple universes. That's unreal. I'm not going to say there were no shortcuts. There's obviously more weight and strong emotions and a way bigger payoff we can get with a longer and more detailed build-up, but accomplishing that successfully in any form is ridiculous. Next, the type of decision this builds up to is exactly the type of climax short fiction wants to have. Ideally, in any story, but especially in short fiction, you want your story to exceed its own runtime. You want people thinking about the characters they like, discussing important scenes. You want moments that stay with you long after you're done watching. Generating questions is a great way to do this. And that can be about how the world works, it can be about meaning behind what we saw, the symbolism. It can be about the gray morality or uncertain outcome of a decision. As soon as this ends, you cannot help but think about arguments for and against Ame's decision. Is it moral to restart the universe to save your friends? Would you make this decision? What else can be done in this new timeline? What else can be tried? What hope do they have? The climax should end the story's arcs, but should also be shaped in a way that extends the story's impact. And these unanswered questions do that really effectively. Next, I mentioned this in the Annie video, Mazumaro has a truly comprehensive understanding of what his tools are, and he uses them all. This short is not even in color mostly, but the use of light and dark are incredibly potent just in the first few shots. The shadows, the shading, and the lack of shading, how the camera focuses and unfocuses even on the subtitles. We have the timing, the way he'll slow down moments to emphasize the impact of them. He takes advantage of audience confusion a lot. He disorients them through the perspective to underscore what's going on once we figure it out. There's dynamics with the fast-paced moments and slow-paced moments, the breaks. You got the non-sequential scenes, the mood, the seriousness, and the silliness. All these different stylistic options. The whole choice of breaking out of the black and white with that one color scene. And this understanding of all of his tools is what allows him to do stuff like putting in fan service and Easter eggs without cluttering the narrative at all for people who won't get them. He makes use of the setting, of aesthetics of little objects. There's all these little fun things packed into the dimension hopping scene. There's this iris reference that looks like a speck of light if you're not looking for it. But my favorite is another super meta storytelling thing. Just like the tool we talked earlier about using the release format for the progression of clues, the title of the short is Myth's Bad Ending. A title like this naturally evokes the question, so is there going to be a good ending? And Mazumaro was ready for this. He had this answer that was beyond epic. The good ending is happening right now. Ame restarted the timeline of the universe, and we are living in that timeline now, and these characters exist, and the world has not been destroyed. That date at the end, which itself is an Easter egg, had already passed by October 29th when Mazumaro released the final version of the short. It is another subtle clue that we are living in this story now as we speak. Talk about extending the story beyond its runtime, jeez. And again, realizing the title and the release date can also be narrative tools, man, that is just so sharp. How do you think of these things? I usually plug my own stuff at the end of my videos, and I will, but go support the guy who made this. Donate to Mazumaro, sub to his channel. I love when someone with gigantic talent just appears on the internet out of nowhere, and we get to follow their journey as they grow and make more cool things. And I want to end this video with some words of encouragement to artists of all kinds out there, because like I mentioned before, this is a fan project. Someone like you made this. And there's a lot to learn from this on an industry level, let's call it a career level. It's an incredibly confusing process to start a career in these kinds of industries. It's hard to know what to focus on to build a following, to get noticed by people you want to notice you, to get credits to your name that can lead to bigger things, and a common starting point is to piggyback. You're an artist, make fan art. You're a musician, do covers. But the limitation is that while you may be showcasing your art skill and art style, it can be hard for people to see you through that. A lot of people will see your fan art and they'll like it and they'll share it, and the whole time they'll be seeing a cool picture of a character they love drawn by some artist on the internet. They'll listen to you cover their favorite song, but there's a large gap between that and them buying an album of your own original music. However, there's a sweet spot you can hit. When you create a space within the type of fan project you're making where you can take center stage, you use the IP as a launch point for your own creativity. The reason they click may be because of the IP, but what they experience and what they like is you. A great example of this going back like 5-10 years is the sketch series Hey Ash, What Ya Playin'? You had these two siblings, Anthony wanted to be a writer, Ashley wanted to act, and they made a comedy series using popular games as a hook and a subject matter. That was why we all clicked, but what was entertaining wasn't the game, it was Anthony's writing and Ash's acting. And lo and behold, this fan project launched Anthony's writing career and Ash's acting career. Mazumaro took popular characters, their personalities, their lore, and made a short where the centerpiece is his animation and his storytelling. The characters, just like their design doesn't do anything on its own, it gets you to click, but the short is compelling and entertaining and impressive because of the artist's creativity. And the following Mazumaro gained is built on that. And not completely, of course, a large chunk of his following are just Hololive fans who want to see more content about that, and that's fine, but a more significant portion than usual of viewers of a fan project like this noticed him. We were blown away by the insane animation and insane storytelling, and that is exactly where you want to be if you're in a career like this. And I don't mean to talk about all this in a cold, calculating, businessy way. It's clear that this is a project with a lot of love and honest passion for the material behind it, but that's what makes us want to have careers doing stuff like this, because we have so much love and passion, we want to spread that through what we make. So yeah, go support Mazumaro, get him closer to leading his own animation studio one day. I'm honestly so excited to see future projects. Let me know if there are other fan animations or fan projects like this one that are just head and shoulders above everything else in terms of quality. I would love to see more stuff like this. Subscribe. If you have any friends who like Hololive stuff or VTuber stuff, I'd love if you could share this video with them or give it a retweet or what have you. No idea if the algorithm will get this video to the right people, so I most likely need all the help I can get here. Support the channel on Patreon also if you'd like to. Big thanks to everyone over there. Shoutouts to Melinda, new high tier patron, and congrats to Savannah and Paul for rendering their new short. Hope you enjoyed this analysis of something a little different, and thanks for watching.